In 2014, China started investing billions of dollars to make artificial islands in the South China Sea. Within a year, Chinese engineers created several new pieces of land totaling more than 4 square kilometers. To build an island, they first examine the sea bottom to find the right spots, which could be hidden islands, rocks, or coral reefs. Then, they bring in special building materials like a unique kind of concrete that works underwater. After that, big machines grab sand from the ocean floor and pile it up until they have a new piece of land. China is doing this to make more islands, spreading sand on top of reefs and shallow areas. Other countries in Asia are worried, thinking China wants to control the whole South China Sea. China has made artificial islands before, like near Guangzhou, to get more land. But now, they're also doing it for powerful reasons like taking charge of certain areas. The Paracel Islands are one place everyone's looking at. Even though they're supposed to belong to no one, 6 countries, including China, Vietnam, the Philippines, Brunei, Taiwan, and Malaysia, all want to claim them. But before we go into the fascinating details of these islands, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Ultimate Mega Builds for more amazing videos. Every year, goods worth over $3 trillion travel through this part of the ocean, connecting regions like the Far East and Southeast Asia with the Indian subcontinent, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. This sea route is historically important and has become even more crucial for trade. But the South China Sea isn't just a vital path for ships, it's also believed to hold vast amounts of oil and gas. The Chinese government says there could be huge reserves of these resources which haven't been fully tapped into yet. Even though oil was found here back in 1968, estimates on how much is down there vary. China's Ministry of Geology and Mineral Resources suggests there could be up to 18 billion barrels of oil, but other estimates range from 1.1 billion to 11 billion barrels. Another reason the South China Sea is so important is because it's a major source of seafood, which is a big part of the local diet. The area's waters are teeming with marine life, making it a crucial resource for the region's countries. These nations rely heavily on the sea not just for food, but also for their economies, especially because many trade routes cross through these waters. For instance, Japan gets about 80% of its energy imports via the South China Sea. China also has significant stakes in the area, with around 60% of its foreign trade passing through these waters. This explains why China is so focused on the South China Sea, working to protect its trade routes while also exploring other ways to transport goods, including land and combined sea-land routes. Despite expanding its options, China continues to invest heavily in sea transport, developing ports and other critical infrastructure worldwide. One of China's big projects, the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, is part of its ambitious One Belt, One Road initiative, which involves investing billions in infrastructure to boost trade and economic influence. For China, securing its interests in the South China Sea is a top priority, partly because of the disputed territories there, which have been a source of tension for many years. Everyone knew about the small islands, atolls, and coral reefs scattered across the sea. But the Paracel and Spratly Islands, which are just small bits of land sticking out of the water, didn't seem very important until the 20th century. In 1939, Japan took control of some of these islands to use them for military reasons. After Japan lost World War II, the countries nearby started to see the value in these tiny patches of land. The Spratly Islands cover less than 5 square kilometers, and the Paracel Islands about 7.8 square kilometers. After the war, nobody was sure who owned these islands, which didn't seem like a big deal at the time. But soon, countries were ready to argue and even fight over them. In the latter half of the 20th century, the nations around the South China Sea were often at odds. On one side was China, trying to establish communism but not getting along with the Soviet Union, another communist power. On the other side were countries like Vietnam, which had just unified after the Vietnam War, the Philippines, an ally of the United States, and Indonesia, which at times leaned towards socialism or capitalism. As Malaysia grew economically, its interests in the region expanded. Taiwan, which China views as part of its territory, also plays a role in the complex dynamics of the South China Sea. It's no wonder that this area, filled with unclear territorial ownership, became a hotspot where the interests of regional nations and their supporting superpowers collided. China was the main country asserting claims over almost all the islands, guided by what's known as the 9-dash line. The 9-dash line, first seen on a Chinese map in 1947, is a boundary that China uses to claim a large area of the South China Sea, almost 90% of it. This claim is not accepted by neighbouring countries, each of which has its own territorial claims. Vietnam wants parts of the Paracel Islands. The Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam and even Brunei have eyes on the Spratly Islands. In 1974, tensions over these disputes led to an armed conflict between China and South Vietnam, which was already struggling in its war against communist North Vietnam. The skirmishes at sea, which sadly resulted in loss of lives, led to China taking control over some disputed areas. For many years, China's presence on these islands was minimal, mainly involving observation posts and small military groups. However, in 2010, things changed dramatically. By 2013, China began transforming these territories into bases to oversee the sea region. Most of these islands were too small for big projects, and many were just coral reefs. But for China, this was just a minor obstacle. The nation used its engineering skills to expand these territories. Using special ships, sand was scooped up from the sea bottom and transported to the islands to create more land. The official reason for this expansion was to make life and work better for people on the islands. The plan included building infrastructure to provide shelter, help with navigation, and offer better weather forecasts for fishers and merchant ships. Additionally, new deep harbours were constructed, coastlines were reinforced against natural disasters, and 3 large airfields were quickly built. Hundreds of ships took part in the project, with the giant Xingjianghao, the largest of its kind in Asia, leading the effort. The outcome was remarkable. In just the 7 most actively developed reefs, China created 13.5 square kilometers of new land. This expansion is about the same size as the 2 biggest archipelagos, Spratly and Paracel, combined. While there were stated humanitarian reasons for this massive infrastructure project, its main benefit for China was strategic. The new land helped establish naval bases, some with significant military value. Analysis of satellite images reveals that these man-made islands host more than just airfields. They also have communication centers, radar stations, air defense systems, and missile warning systems. These developments suggest that China aims to protect its maritime trade routes, especially in the event of military or political crisis. Given the South China Sea's critical role in global commerce, experts say up to a quarter of all international trade passes through it, China's actions have garnered international attention. The issue has escalated to a global concern, especially among countries that view China's moves as adversarial. In September 2021, the AUKUS alliance, comprising Australia, Britain and the United States, was formed. This partnership aims to allow Australia to develop its nuclear submarine fleet and serves as a strategy to counter China's influence in the South China Sea. China has expressed strong opposition to AUKUS and continues to assertively develop its claimed territories, despite the ongoing disputes over their ownership. Vietnam is also developing its maritime claims, albeit on a smaller scale. These geopolitical activities have taken a toll on the environment, particularly affecting the coral reefs in the region. While ecological concerns are overshadowed by the larger political and military issues, they remain significant to environmentalists and those concerned about nature. The hope is that the ongoing military posturing, including the United States' deliberate naval presence in the South China Sea, will not escalate into an open conflict. That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to our channel for more groundbreaking mega projects.